It was a slender, graceful animal with large green eyes and a small pink tongue in its triangular shaped face. It was glooming itself when I turned the corner, delivering soft, measured licks onto its shining fur. But none of that mattered. It was a cat, and it was a black cat. That only was important. I do not believe in coincidence. Right as I was making my way past him, the cat got up and crossed my path, all smooth motion and unstoppable omen of the providence. It did not even trouble me that much. Sometimes bad luck just is just that. A black cat crossing your path. Your phone is slipping through your hands and shattering on the floor. I short it off, moved on with my day, but I was no fool. A black cat crossing your path is bad luck. I knew that. Everybody knows that. By noon, I had seen my third cat, all ears and legs, impossibly tall, black as the darkest night. That was when I started to worry. Three is a magical number, they say, a witch's number, just like a black cat is a witch's companion. Bad things always come in threes. A crumbled phone, a delayed flight back home, fresh news of a cyclone. Your family will be fine, said the airport receptionist with a Colgate smile firmly planted on his face. And our job is to make sure you will be fine too, by not landing airplanes with weather conditions being so extreme. I looked at him and thought about black cats and hairbingers of death. I haven't seen three of those since I had woken up. Well, what could I say, really? Fairy tales are for 6-year-old little girls. Even I was aware of that. I crossed the fourth cat while walking around in the airport. How it got there in the first place, I still don't know. Animals weren't supposed to wander around in airports, especially not black cats. That would be bad luck for thousands and thousands of people. That would be planes crashing to the ground to the sound of horrified, helpless cries of terror. That would be utterly unacceptable for any respectable company. Yet, here it was. I didn't see it at first, too lost in my thoughts and worries to pay much attention to what was going on around me. But it crossed right in front of me, a mere black fur that faded away to the delighted shouts of children. Four means death in China. I knew that. I knew what the cat meant. How could I ever have accepted it? A broken phone is bad luck. A dead brother is not. However many cats cross you. Maybe I should start back to the beginning. In the beginning, I wouldn't have been that bothered by black cats crossing my path, be there one or four or 100 of them. I was young and stupid, blissfully ignorant, which is perhaps the exact same thing. I didn't know about omens, about luck and fortune and providence, or whatever the true name of one and only God out there is. I knew only science. That was my God. That was my truth. Believe it or not, I actually got quite far in my advanced physics studies. Most of all, I wanted to understand how the world around me worked. I wanted to decipher all of its secrets. I wanted to have certainties and assurances. I wanted to be given a little notepad with Guidebook to Life written on the front page. And I wanted it to contain the answers to life and death and everything else that had ever existed. That was the one and only promise of science. For me, for everyone. Wouldn't you know? Regardless of the branch of physics you're studying, There always comes a point where your professor smiles a bashful smile and explains that we are unable to explain exactly why things work like this. We have equations for sure, they would admit, struggling, but they are either empirical or purely invented. They just appear to work fine for now, so we keep them. And thus, the world falls apart. For all our big words and brilliant inventions, for all our Albert Einsteins and Neil Armstrongs, we're still, deep down, those gullible idiots who looked up at the sky and invented gods to explain the sun and the moon and the death of our loved ones. At the very far end of the tunnel, science is like everything else, only an act of faith. I think I never truly accepted that. Not so much the fact of faith part, it was the lie I couldn't get around. Science was supposed to explain everything, and yet, when it encountered some big mystery, it simply stopped and sat back and said, well, I don't know. I'll try to understand, but perhaps I never will. What good is any system of belief if it doesn't reveal the secret of love or the existence of the afterlife? Science was broken. It took me years to understand that. And so I jumped ship. I left behind statistical physics, quantum mechanics, and particle physics, and all the complicated equations that led to not but a dark void of uncertainty. It broke me, realizing I knew in fact nothing. The world was too large, too complex, too terrifying for me. Suddenly I was nothing. And who could live thinking that they are nothing? I stand firmly convinced that men need a system of beliefs more than they need oxygen. That was the beginning of being wary of black cats and ladders, of never having 13 people sat at the same table, or acting careful around mirrors. For anything is better than nothing, and that at least was something. It's funny how things start being real once you believe in them. I ate at a family diner with 12 other people, and my mother died in a car accident only a few weeks later. Tom, with all the arrogance of a little brother, ran under a ladder 3 times in a row just to make fun of me. Once is bad luck, twice, twice takes by the harm, thrice summons a devil's arm, and broke his leg almost immediately after. I crossed the path of a black cat and my phone fell to the ground of its own accord. I saw a second one and my plane was delayed. A third one and the news of a hurricane moving faster than planned towards Jacksonville got my flight canceled. And the fourth for a brother not yet dead, but soon to be. Had I had a phone still, I would have spent hours calling him, begging for him not to leave the house with the hurricane ready to hit, not to take the car with so many people afraid on the streets, not to touch any electrical device, lest an accident happen. Would he have listened though? No one can cheat destiny after all. Yet I would have tried all the same. Anything. Anything is better than powerlessness. That's why superstition exists in the first place. I like to say I stopped counting after that. I like to say that I decided no omen could justify me thinking my brother would die. I like to say I made the conscious decision to ignore any black cat that I would stumble upon, but I didn't. I crossed paths with a fifth cat, a fifth black cat, then a sixth, then a seventh. I broke the right wrist I desperately needed to win athletic scholarships in order to pay for college. Then my landlord coolly informed me that she couldn't let me stay for a few more weeks, regardless of any problems I had encountered with my flight back home. The seventh cat, as all seven things are, was a bit different. She was an old, grumpy thing that stared sullenly at me while I was waiting at the hospital to have my wrist taken care of. Her fur was black, or it should have been, but age and a general lack of toileting had turned it into a deep gray that looked almost like neglect. Cats aren't supposed to wander around hospitals any more than airports. Yet this cat in this hospital looked perfectly in her place. No one seemed to question her presence here, not even the doctors and nurses running around. To be fair, she didn't make a sound, and she didn't move much. She seemed perfectly content watching people pass her by, her pale yellow eyes following their movements until they had disappeared. Once she had noticed me, sitting in a chair just across the waiting room, she refused to look away. At some point, a doctor whistled and she crossed the hall. That must have been a signal for some sort. The cat rose to her feet and made her way lazily towards her master. She made a detour by the chair I was waiting in, and her long, deep gray tail winded around my ankle. She didn't stop. She didn't look up. It was some kind of silent acknowledgement that I couldn't understand. So maybe that wasn't really crossing paths with a black cat. But then again, seven is a strange number, a number that has to do with harmony and cosmic balance more than it has to do with black cats. There are seven colors in a rainbow, seven wonders in the world. If I am to be honest, I thought that there would be seven cats to cross my path that day, six of them to bring bad luck, and a seven to finally bring rest. That was biblical. 6 days of work and one to rest. It made sense. In a way, a dead brother didn't. Of course, it didn't happen. Seven is not a number that has anything to do with cats or with luck for that matter. There's only one for those. A cat has 9 lives. Who could pretend not to know that? For three it plays, says the proverb. Runs around breaking phones, jumps and dives, disrupts everything in his wake. 3 lives to break things with no regards to consequences. 3 lives to bring them storm. And once the hurricane is here, that choice is there, but to grow up. For three, it strays, says the proverb. Hovers and slurs and shows its claws and starves and fights and bears its fangs. 3 lives to hurt, 3 lives to kill. A stray cat means loss of and anger and survival of the fittest in its most unfair dimension. A stray cat means death for homelessness and rage at being denied the things you worked so hard for. For three, it says, for three, it stays, says the proverb. And after such blazing stunts, really, what else is left to do? The cat stays and caresses your leg as it crosses you. The cat waits for you when you get out of the hospital and trots past you as if you only to remind you of its presence. The cat is sad at the entrance, the only cheap enough hotel you could find, and it waits with unbelievable arrogance for you to cross him. You sleep in the rainy street and your luggage ends up in the gully. The air conditioning in your room is broken and the water in the shower isn't at all that clear. It's bad luck, almost peaceful, almost soothing. It's bad luck you can live with. So that makes 9 of them. 9 cats for 9 lives. The hardest thing of all, said Confucius, is to find a black cat in a dark room. I have to disagree. The cat was there when I got out of the bathroom, and it was the very first thing I noticed. By night, all cats are gray, says a proverb. Yet, this one is quite distinctly black in the darkness of my room. It is looking at me, its green eyes shining with something that resembles smugness and amusement. I'm at the door, frozen, and it's on the bed. sitting straight. It can be. A cat has 9 legs. Everyone knows that. For 3 it plays, for 3 it strays, and for the last 3 it stays. Crossing 9 cats, that means something. That has value. Symbolism that can be read into. 9 cats is a cycle of life. 9 cats is the beginning of the end and something greater than you're orchestrating things. 10 cats mean nothing, nothing at all. I take one step forward, then another. For if I believe it enough, the cat will vanish through the open window and all of this will be an accident. Something not to be dwelt on, something to forget. And the cat does something that shouldn't be possible. It hops down the bed in one fluid motion and races past me to the bathroom. And so there were 10. I remember once reading a quote by some idiot who stated, "A black cat crossing your path signifies that the animal is going somewhere." It was stupid because it was scientific. It looked at the world and decided to explain only what could be explained easily. And how are we supposed to live in a world like that? Crossing 9 black cats in a day means that Tom is dead somewhere, and my broken phone and delayed plane stopped me from ever see him again. It means that I've lost most of my chances at a scholarship and have nowhere to stay. And it means that in some other dimension, a God called Providence made all of that happen, and I couldn't do anything to stop it. It means that my broken wrist was part of a plan that I couldn't comprehend, but that existed nonetheless. It means that all of this somehow had a reason, a sense. A 10th cat means anything can happen. A 10th cat means nothing makes any sense anymore. If I can cross 10 black cats in a day, then I can cross 11 or 15 or 100. And no one would care. And it would mean nothing. And that is not possible. For things have to make sense. For there must be something, at least something hidden deep beneath the surface of things. Something to explain it all. Because if there isn't, then why are we here? What are we here for? Because if there isn't, then what's the point? What's the justification beneath all these shitty things that happen wholly undeserved? Because if there isn't, Tom could be alive today. For that 4th cat would have meant nothing. And dead tomorrow or in a year. And no one would ever have any chance of predicting it. And no one would ever have any chance at preventing it. If there isn't, my mother wouldn't have died in that car accident, regardless of whether I sat at a 13 settings table with her. And how could it be possible that such things happen for no reason at all? I'm searching and searching and searching for an explanation. An explanation that has to exist somewhere, because anything else would have been acceptable. The hardest thing of all, said Confucius, is to find a black cat in a dark room, especially if there is no cat.